All right, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to Cycle Jerks Podcast. I'm Mike Stewart, your host, and I'm joined, as always, by Dave Dalton.
Whatever
And
happened to the lovely and talented? It used to be lovely and talented. Now
yeah,
it's
but
now I'm just a number, like Dave Dalton, and here we are, episode whatever. So
yeah, we rode together recently, and I discovered that you're not that lovely, and you're definitely not that talented. So,
when the nightmare comes back
uh-huh,
quickly, doesn't it? Oh
uh-huh,
God.
yeah. So, no, but hey, today's a good one. We've got Jeremy Raeszler with us, and he goes by Paragravel Cyclist on Instagram, and he suffered a pretty tough injury. And like our guest last week, Tara, you have a couple of choices when something like that happens. I can only imagine. But Jeremy's taken this path of just attacking big challenges, and it's just been something really fun to watch on Instagram. And so we thought we'd have him on. So Jeremy,
Yeah.
welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Incredibly,
Thank you. Glad to
great,
be here.
incredibly inspiring, Jeremy. So yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, I particularly appreciated because you wonder like how does somebody that's dealing with the type of injury that you have, is a T12, is that right?
Yeah, it's a T12 spinal cord injury, originally diagnosed as complete, meaning that I couldn't even move out of a chair on my own. I would have to have help from my spouse or from a friend.
Hmm.
And then shortly after that, about 6 months after that, they changed the diagnosis to an incomplete because I did start to get feeling back at some places below that T12 level. T12 being about, I guess, to kind of give you an idea on the location, that's about the belly button level
Okay.
down for me, which affects the core, the hip flexors, glutes, and then, of course, everything down to the legs, your hamstrings, quads, knees, calves,
Yeah.
ankles,
Well,
toes.
let's get. I want to. I mean, oh wow, but I do want to start at like when were you writing and what led up to this? How did it happen? And then, to Mike's question, which is huge, is like where do you get the will to move on to something like this, right?
Right.
So, but we're tell us about
Okay.
the your earlier years and how you found the
Yeah.
bike.
So the accident actually happened from motocross.
Oh,
I actually didn't really find the bike at the level that I'm at now until real recently.
okay.
But I guess to kind of lead up to the injury, I have spent most of my childhood and my adult life racing motocross amateur, as an amateur athlete. Nothing at any sponsorship level or anything like that. I would go periods of 2, 3 years at a time, and that's just an average. And where I wouldn't actually ride, because I'd be focused on building a family or starting a career, a new career level. And then I would just pick it back up. Oh, it was something that had been instilled in me since I was a kid. My first motorbike was so big that my dad and my grandfather dug holes in the ground out at the farm so that they could push the motorcycle into the holes to lower the seat down to where I could get on it.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and I guess when so the accident happened, I say about 5 years after my marriage, and I just lost focus. I mean, it
Mhm.
was a race. It was a Sunday morning. It was the first race, first heat of the day. I had some issues with the motorcycle the day before at the previous race that I had done, and I didn't address them. I took off from that starting gate, and there's a bolt that holds the pedal in to keep it from spinning, keep it from rotating. Well, that little half-inch bolt had fallen out, and I looked down just as I hit that first jump, and I lost control. Most importantly, I lost focus. I went straight up in the air. From what they tell me, I was about 40 feet up in the air, and I tried to correct it, and I came down spread eagle on the back tire of that motorcycle. That motorcycle was, I guess, standing straight up and down. So
Oh,
so
wow.
my tailbone crushed that rear fender, and that compressed my spine, and I immediately lost feeling at that point.
Wow.
I'll be right honest with you. I didn't even know then that the seriousness of the injury. All I knew was my back hurt, and I couldn't feel my legs, but I didn't think anything of it because my back hurt so terribly bad.
Mm.
They life flighted me to the hospital. And they at that point, when you're in the helicopter, from then on, you're pumped so full of morphine, you have no idea what's going on. So again, I still hadn't really realized the extensiveness of this accident. Uh,
Do
it
you mind me
was
asking how old you were at the time?
Well, I was in 2008. I'm 50 years old now, so I've got I don't have 16 years ago. It's 34.
Mm.
Yeah.
At least you can do math. Okay, good. All right.
Says the school teacher.
Although you
That's
put
the school teacher.
you put me on the spot there.
Pretty good though. Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
And
so yeah,
you had just been, I'm sorry to interject here, but
yeah,
you had been married for just 5 years at that point?
yep, yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep. Well,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, that my third marriage, but yes.
Third marriage. Okay. Yeah, good for you.
That's
All these numbers,
that's a
hold on, let me
whole
write
nother
that down.
podcast we'll get into later.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
so anyways, I spent about a week in ICU. I spent a week in general population, I guess you'd call it, at University Medical Center here in Las Vegas. And again, still pumped full of drugs. I knew I couldn't move my legs. Every time they would sit me up, I'd pass out.
wow.
And after about a week, they got me to where I could sit up, but I had a big brace that went around my back and around my stomach, kind of held my core together, held things straight. And once I could sit upright without passing out, they kicked me out of the hospital and moved me to an outpatient facility. And that's where it kind of dawned on me what happened, and where I, I mean, I was no longer going to be able to do the things that I thought that I was supposed to do as a athlete, as a man, as a human being, as a husband.
Hmm.
Um, I had a really good therapist, physical therapist, that kind of helped me through some of them mental barriers while I was working on building strength in the hospital.
Hmm.
And that was another 6 weeks. And from there I went home, and that's kind of when it hit me, when my wife helped me get out of the car into the wheelchair, and I started heading towards that door in the garage to go in the house, and realized I couldn't do it. It was too big of a step. I was in a wheelchair. So she had to
Hmm.
push me out of the house, out of the garage, around to the front of the house. We got in the front door, and then my dog was there, and my dog was jumping up on my lap, and I broke down crying. I laid in bed at that point for 2 days. I could no longer get a glass out of the cupboard to get a glass of water. I couldn't take the trash out. I couldn't go out in the backyard and barbecue hamburgers. I couldn't clean the pool. I couldn't do anything anymore.
Oh,
Um,
man.
but you guys have been, well, I don't know if I should do. I'm going to call you guys athletes.
Yeah.
Uh, a couple days of laying there in bed, it kind of dawned on me that I was getting bored. I was itching for something to do, and it's kind of when I realized that if anything was going to change, I was going to be the one that was going to have to change it. So I called up my wife. She had gone to work. She had come home. She helped me arrange outpatient therapy. I called the short bus, and they come to pick me up twice a day for a long time. And that's where I learned that, or I started to learn that through repetition, I was going to be able to do things that they told me that I was never going to be able to do again. Like uh, walk, you know, I,
Hmm.
I've got a walk assisted. I've got crutches that I use. I've got braces that I put under, under my feet to hold my feet up, or to support my ankles. But these are all things they told me I would never be able to do. Um, and
Yeah.
it, I would plateau. I would plateau out on my abilities. So I would, and I would stump the therapist. So I would have to find ways on my own on how to adapt exercises to continue to build and gain strength. I had done this for many years, and believe it or not, you guys follow. We're talking about my Instagram, and it's not real big, but I think I've helped a few people. I've only been cycling since November of 2022. So it's only been about a year and a half that I've actually been riding a bike at the level that I am. It was like I was talking about figuring out ways to adapt, how to grow or how to build muscles. And I was just sitting with my wife one day. We had gone up to Salt Lake City to go. I think we'd gone up there to go shopping or something. We were sitting down at a restaurant, and I told her, I said, you know what? I think I want to try ride a bike. And she was happy I didn't say motorcycle.
Yeah.
So
You
we
know what she's thinking though in the back of her head. She's going, motorcycles are next. Motorcycles are next, right?
All right.
Yep, yeah. Well, again, we'll get into that, but I do have one of those now again too. So,
Oh
but
boy.
Oh my goodness.
the uh the
So this was just a whole, this was just a, I'm having dinner, and then it pops into your head, or had you
yes,
seen other cyclists, or you just said,
no,
this is something new, I got to do it, but it was an epiphany.
it was an epiphany. We were literally just sitting there eating, not talking about bicycles, not talking about anything other than maybe going across the street to the thrift store when we finished eating. And it just popped in my head that I wanted to try ride a bike, and I said it out loud. And she kind of rolled her eyes back a little bit and then started nodding her head in agreement, like, yeah, you know what? Maybe we
Yeah.
can try that. So first thing I did was when we got home, we were living in a little town in southern Utah near Bryce Canyon. We got home and we went up to Bryce Canyon National Park and rented e-bikes. And I hadn't been on a bike, since I was a little, a pedal bike since I was a kid, and I hadn't been on a motorcycle since my accident. We're at 14 years post injury, and the only thing that made me think that I could do it was these e-bikes had throttles to them, and if I
Hmm.
couldn't pedal it, at least I could throttle my way out of out of trouble. And sure enough, I was able to ride that bike. Once I got I realized, once I was in motion, I was balanced. Uh, and if I was going fast enough, I could address each foot individually to make sure it got placed on the pedal correctly, straight, to where my foot was straight, my heels weren't turned in or out, or my heel wasn't on the pedal. It was, versus the middle of my foot or the ball of my foot. And I was able to pedal that bike without any assistance. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Um, and it it was all downhill from there. I was hooked. I was addicted. So
What
I
yeah.
bought an indoor trainer next is what I did, and that's kind of where the whole endurance levels and building the strength to be able to ride an upright bike started.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I mean, it's pretty interesting. I mean, I don't know if you heard our last week's podcast, and it is kind of interesting how we've been working on both you and Tara for quite a while, and it just so happens you guys come on back-to-back weeks. But Tara Yanis was our guest last week, and she suffered a spinal cord injury, and she was very committed to walking again after the accident. She's a high level bike racer, and but it didn't happen for her. As much as she tried, it just didn't happen. And so she's continued on though. She's playing wheelchair basketball for the Canadian Olympic Paralympic team. And so she's maintained this athlete status in spite of the fact that she wasn't able uh, to regain, the ability to walk. She had mentioned that when they put her in that brace, like you were talking about, and to try to stand up, that she would almost immediately throw up because of the pain in her body. She just couldn't deal. Did you, in those moments when you're working on trying to figure out where you're at, take inventory, did you have a similar reaction when you put the core support on and tried to stand, or was it easier than
Yeah,
that for you?
yeah, it was a long time ago. I've, one, one thing I've learned with spinal cord injuries is there can be somebody who has the exact same injury as me at the exact same level with the exact same bolt pattern, and we're going to be two completely different people. Um,
Yep.
One place that I've been super fortunate is I've had zero pain in 16 years from my accident. After I was fixed, after that doctor bolted me back together, and they kept pumping me full of painkillers, and I was the one that actually stopped it on my own about a
Hmm.
week and a half into it. I took Advil for about 6 weeks, and after that, I didn't even have to do that. So
Wow.
no, I can't relate to the pain part of it. The physical pain, the mental pain is something that I continue to struggle with.
Sure.
The fact that I'm different and the fact that everything is so goddamn hard for me to do
Hmm.
um, is uh, is the hardest part. But I guess to get back to your, I didn't, I wouldn't get the nausea, but I would literally pass out cold. I would
Okay.
get, I would get the cold sweats. I remember that. I get cold and I'd start sweating, and the next thing I knew, I was laying in the bed and this brace was off of me. It was as if I never even did it. I was covered back up with the blankets and everything else. That
Well,
was, and I don't know why. I don't know why again, I guess everybody's different.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I got to say, what a blessing to not have the pain,
yeah,
because, Tara ended up she had this long battle with Oxy, and she
yeah,
was abusing it. And ultimately, she did get off of it, but it was like she described it as a very dark 2-year period
yeah,
of drug abuse.
absolutely.
And, she's struggled with pain, I know. So, man, just that's a big one, even and with everything else that you're dealing with, and then have that pain on top
Mhm.
of everything. Um,
That constant reminder,
yeah,
that you're not going to be able to do the things that you love, the things that you grew up being able to do.
yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine having to deal with the pain as well.
Hmm.
I've been so fortunate, and I look back at the X-ray images from that day when the surgery was done, and I think, how could I not?
Yeah, right.
With the bolts and the wires and everything else that's in there. The incision that the doctor made, he actually went in through my left side. It's only about 3.5 inches long, the scar.
Wow.
I don't know how he did it. I seriously have. He punctured a lung, so I got another little one where they put a tube in to keep that lung drained while that healed. But yeah, I don't know. I got super lucky there, and the fact that I have the ability to physically do the things that I can do, uh, or maybe that's the wrong way to put it. The ability I have to make my body below the injury level, do things through repetition, I can actually make those parts of my body that I can't feel do them without me thinking about it.
Hmm.
Like riding a
So
bike. It's I don't ride a hand cycle. Nothing against that. I think they're great, and trust me, I've thought about a million times on getting one. But I can literally ride an upright pedal bike, just like you guys do,
Yeah,
without
yeah,
feeling half my body.
it's
you know,
pretty crazy.
I think
It really is.
Yeah.
yeah. I think that I would if we could. I want to back up. I feel bad that I because I do want to understand this difference in terms of the it. And by the way, if I ask any questions that are off limits or you don't want to talk about it, just say shut up, Dave. Right?
Sure, yeah.
Or you can
Yeah,
let
no,
me
you
know.
won't
I'll
get that from
happy.
me. Yeah.
but first of all, I think I mean, I'm, I want to know a little bit more about the accident because it relates to how you were describing where you were putting your feet on the bike and the first time you get it. But I think before I go there, I think we're missing something here. I mean, you talked about kind of being dark and dismal for 2 days, and then you kind of said, no, I'm not going to let this happen. Right. So
Mhm.
which in itself is admirable, given I think that some people could actually wallow in it for a while. And understandably, I'm not, when I say wallow, I mean understandably so. I can't imagine what the mental fortitude it takes to snap out of that. So incredible that you did it in 2 days. What are some of the other things that you said you kind of willed your body? Because this obviously was a little bit of a progression, right? You said you were had to stump the therapist, so you were always doing something extra? Like, what are some of those other things that you did that, because obviously that must have been built up to get you the confidence to say, I want to ride a freaking bike, right?
Right.
I don't,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, I'm there with you. I I feel like I'm missing a couple important steps here. So yeah, let's go ahead and back up. So when I did physical therapy for a long time. I don't even remember how many years I did it, but I was fortunate there again because I had the same therapist the entire time. 4 or 5 years, maybe. I went to physical therapy 5 days a week. And when I would say I would stump the therapist, I would build up I would build up enough strength. And I guess to give you an example, throwing a ball back and forth, a basketball,
right,
standing 10 feet apart. He toss it to me, I toss it back to him. You won't believe how much core strength that actually takes to do that
Yeah.
until you don't have the core strength to do that. Well, we would we would start out with let's say with that basketball, and then eventually we were tossing around a 36-inch ball that weighed 10 pounds back and forth to each other. And he's like, you know what, we can keep doing this, but we're not really gaining any momentum anymore. You're
right,
obviously building up strength. But yet
Yeah.
I couldn't bend down and pick up a Q-tip off of the floor and sit myself back up. So I would go home and I would try and come up with things that I could do on my own. One for me was I I built a table in my garage, and I bolted wheels to the bottom of it, and I would wheel up to that table, and I would push it across the garage. And then I would shuffle my way around to the other side of the table and I would push it back, back to the garage. And it was probably a 60-pound table, I mean, it was heavy. So my thought there was, I was gonna, I was gonna make my ankles and my calves stronger. Uh, I was gonna be able to, to build the strength to where I was gonna be able to walk without the braces. And although I never did reach that point, I don't know. I don't know exactly where I want to go with this.
Mhm.
yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I'm
Yeah, no,
No,
I
it's
mean
not,
kind of
it's
draw kind of drawn a blank with exactly where I wanted to go with that. But the the moral the yeah, so it only took me 2 days to realize that I was the one that was going to have to make this happen.
hmm
And if I didn't have the desire to do it, then whoever I talked to or whoever was going to work with me wasn't going to be able to help me get anywhere. They were
yeah.
going to help, they were going to show me what I needed to do, and they were going to collect their paycheck and go home, but I wasn't going to get better.
Mhm.
And uh, I've always had that hope that I wasn't gonna be disabled anymore. I wasn't gonna have that spinal cord injury. And if I
Yeah,
continued to find ways to strengthen my body,
got it.
yeah,
if I was able to find ways to build muscle or strengthen joints, it was gonna bring me one step closer to being quote unquote normal again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah.
that and the physical part of it has never been the priority for me. It's and maybe that's why I've been able to, to accomplish some of the things I've been able to do. It's always been the physical part so that I can mentally heal.
hmm
My mental health gets stronger because the depression is out of this world. I'll be on a high and then I'll hit a low and I can't get out of it no matter what I do. And that's where cycling has helped me so much in this last year and a half or so that I've been cycling. The
It's
uh,
something we talk about all the time, Jeremy, on the podcast
sure,
is
yeah, it is.
cycling and mental health are good friends. And a lot of us that ride bikes, we put in these crazy hours. People think on the outside, they look at it and just think, good Lord, but
He's a
it's
nutcase.
it's
Yeah.
therapy,
Yeah,
and it's mind, body, and soul stuff. And so it's great that you're able to, I mean, and I've never had depression, but I've had I'm a type A 120 mile an hour person, and so it's hard for me to unwind. And but the bike really helps. It helps my mind, it slows down my mind.
mm,
It allows me to sit and relax and be content where that's not something that comes naturally. And yeah, I mean, I think you really nailed, whether it was luck or whatever, but the fact that you decided that you were going to try to get into cycling and then realize that, hey, there's some other benefits here beyond just this challenge that's in front of me. Um,
right.
yeah, and then you think also to develop endurance as someone who is paralyzed. That's uh that's really unusual,
Right.
and you've been able to do it like you say through the indoor trainer, and then just getting out on the bike and really pushing yourself. Um, when I introduced you at the beginning of the podcast, I neglected to mention that you're RPI scholarship recipient. And can you talk a little bit about RPI and what that has meant to you? RPI is Rebecca's Private Idaho, and it's Rebecca Rush's signature event that she does once a year. And it's a bike race and a party and just a good time. But she also has a philanthropic endeavor that's part of it. So maybe you could
Right.
talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, yeah. So I was I had mentioned that I had got that and I'm going to backtrack just a little bit to kind of build up to how I got involved with RPI, Rebecca's Private Idaho, and her Be Good
Mhm.
Foundation. The I had bought that indoor exercise bike, and it was an iFit bike, and just we can call it luck or call it divine intervention, but I started training on that bike with somebody who you guys know, Yuri Oswald's
Uh-huh.
training program. And at the end
Where
of
does
every
this guy? He's like a bad penny. He keeps showing up every podcast. We should just
Oh,
make him a co-host.
oh,
That's
So
funny.
I don't think we could handle him. He's
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yuri's
Well,
a
God,
How
you
beauty.
did
know
you
what?
get how'd you get connected to Yuri?
Through iFit.
I
Okay.
fit.
iFit. It was a Nordic track exercise. iFit's like Peloton, I guess you would
Okay.
call it. He just records or iFit. Call them up, says, "Hey, we want you to do some cycling training classes for us," and he did them. But
Huh.
at the end of every one, well, not everyone, but at the end of quite a few of them, he would say, "You know what? Reach out to me on social media. Let me know what you think. Have I helped? I didn't even have social media, but he had
Yeah.
this way of connecting with me that, and I know everybody says it, but he or I had this way of connecting with him. I felt like him when I were friends,
Oh yeah.
and I reached out to him on social media, and I mean, I was drilling the guy. He was my cycling mentor. I was asking every question I could ask. I mean, all the way down to, how long should the cleats be on my pedals? And it got to the point to where he had to say, "Look, dude."
Wow. Wow, you broke him.
I
Yeah.
did. Yeah. Yeah. He says, "You know what? I love you and I want to help you, but you got to back off."
Yeah.
Uh,
Here's some goo. Now shut up.
Oh man.
so
Yeah.
anyways, just like a week later, I got tagged in the email. Yuri introduced me to Rebecca and had told her that, you know what, I was going to try and do the crusher and the tusher, and that I would, you know.
Rebecca is your problem now.
Yuri with the
That's
email
funny.
handoff.
Yep, yep. So, anyways, Yuri's the one that introduced me to Rebecca's Private Idaho, and
Oh,
we emailed back and forth on the chain there for a little while, and they offered for me to, to come up and do one of the main event races, and they'd cover the cost of the race as well as the cost of their base camp training program, their 8-week RPI base camp program.
oh, cool.
I could find my way up there, and I says, absolutely, let's do this.
Yeah.
And
Just one second though, before now we're on a roll here, but but you put your feet on the pedal like you're on this Nordic bike or this
Mhm.
what you can't actually feel the pedals.
No,
This is where the question is. So you're that's why you had to on the e-bike you had to check where your feet were placed. But once you get them placed there, you're just basically willing your legs to pedal. Is that what I'm
yes,
hearing?
that is exactly right.
Oh my goodness.
But if you get, for me, because I don't have control of my legs, I got quads and I got knees. That's what works for me. My
Okay.
quads are just as strong or feel just as good as yours, and my knees hurt because I'm 50 years old. But the rest of it, my hip flexors, my glutes, my hamstrings, my calves, my ankles, my toes, my feet, I don't feel them. I can't feel them. They're just ligaments holding joints together now. So I got no idea where that stuff is unless I'm looking at it.
Oh, wow.
And so if I
Yeah.
get pedaling too fast, for instance, on that e-bike that I had rented, or even the Nordic Trek bike at the beginning, if I get pedaling too fast, especially on that exercise bike that has a flywheel, my feet would fly off,
Oh, right.
and I couldn't do anything until them pedals stopped rotating. And that's where the e-bike came in handy at the beginning, because I could just twist the throttle and keep that thing rolling until things slowed down to where I could reposition.
Yeah.
Um, my left side is stronger than my right side, and I was having a big issue when I would try and ride a bike to where my heel on the right side would want to turn in. And it would catch the crank arm, it would catch the chain, knocking my foot off of the pedal. So I actually, and I, I, I've got a blog website where I kind of go through this a little bit. I got a mountain bike pedal, but it had a clip in the middle of the pedal as well. And then the high five shoes, they've got a flat bottom mountain bike shoe that you can, you know, put that cleat in.
Hmm.
And that's how I would clip in the right side, but not the left side as I would ride a bike. Now, keep in mind, I can't even start out on my own. So I have to be leaning against a wall or against a fence or have somebody holding the bike uh, while I get my feet placed. And then I can make it go from there, but I can't push off to start on my own.
Hmm.
Uh, but anyway, so when I got that right foot clipped in, now I've got, I'm attached to that pedal. My foot is straight, and I can actually pedal that bike with just one leg, with just that right leg, as long as I'm geared down low enough. And then I get my left foot placed on that pedal. And
It's
yeah,
so it is
yeah.
the so you
But oh, I can't feel them.
so it's like quad and knees, like you're saying, and then there's a lot of circuitry though
Mhm,
between there, right? So
mhm,
you're just you're basically overriding the whole system.
mhm.
uh and so it's just quads, is that so when you're in this
Yeah.
pedaling motion, it's just my quads, I'm just pushing and pulling, and do
Well,
you do you activate your hamstrings?
it's at the yes and no. So at the beginning, it was all quads. It was just pushing is all it was. It was
Yeah,
pushing hard enough to bring the pedal around to be able to push with the other leg. And by clipping in that right side, now I was attached to the bike. So I started learning, well, God, you know what? I can pull up a little bit as long as I'm not, in too high of a gear or I'm not trying to climb a 19% grade. I can actually pull up with my right side. And I got, I can't prove it, but I got no doubt in my mind that I was actually making a connection, uh, or making that missing connection to a hamstring,
yeah,
or maybe not the whole hamstring, geometry, but to something on the backside of my leg there. Hey, guys, I truly don't think that I could ride a bike if I didn't have any connection whatsoever in my hamstrings anymore, at least not to the capacity that I am. And I'm
yeah,
not saying I'm perfect or I'm great or I can do it all, because I can't. I mean, there's places where I can't ride, but I've been able to build up the strength to where I can literally lift my leg and throw it over a bike now. When before I couldn't do that, I would need help doing all of that kind of stuff.
yeah,
And through the repetition of the motion, I believe with all of my heart that I am proving science wrong, that I am able to make that mind to muscle connection, to be able to continue after 16 years, uh, to build up the strength to be able to keep the dream alive of not being different than
hmm
than what people, most people are. And for me, that's always been the biggest struggle. uh I know we kind of gotten
yeah.
off track there a little bit.
When
I
have
think
we
I,
ever been on track, Jeremy? Don't worry about it.
I
So,
think I think a lot of people strive to be different. It's
Yeah.
interesting, your take where you just don't want to be different, whereas so many people spend their whole life trying to separate themselves and be different in different ways.
The bike
Um,
gave that to me when I was, see, before I moved down here, and I've only been back in Las Vegas for a couple of weeks, but before I moved here, when I was living in that little town in southern Utah, guys, I was putting on 60 to 100 miles a week
wow.
on that acoustic bike on
Yeah,
my own every day. I'd get up early and go ride that bicycle 10, 15 miles every day,
yeah,
because I was so excited.
you go,
And
I mean,
riding that bike makes me feel like and I hate using the word normal, but it makes me feel like I'm not crippled anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you were driving a car down the road and passed me alongside the road and see me riding that bike, not knowing who I am, even if I have my sticks strapped to the rack on the back of it, you'd have no earthly idea that I was a T12 spinal cord injury uh, patient,
Yeah.
or I suffered from paralysis, right?
Yeah.
And I love that feeling of not being different. And that
Yeah.
kind of motivated this whole thing. Rebecca's Private Idaho. It took, I only did this, what was it, her 61 miles, the French fry. Uh, and I had to stop a whole bunch, and I had a team of three other riders that were there helping me. But I did it. I crossed the start line and I crossed the finish line. It took me
Yeah.
9 hours, but I freaking did it.
Yeah.
Uh, which I mean, you think about it, it's pretty freaking incredible.
It
Uh,
is. It is a. Yeah. I'm glad
I
you're
know
saying
he
it
said
because.
there were some places I can't ride, and I'm thinking, yeah, but you just did one of the hardest rides on the planet, right? So yeah, so it is more than friggin' incredible. Yeah, I
and
mean,
I'm going back.
Yeah.
I did a bike packing trip recently, just to see if I could do it. I wanted to see
Yeah.
if I could ride all day and then get up and then be forced to ride again another day,
Yeah.
to see if I had the endurance level, if I had the strength to do that. And this is where the scholarship recipient part comes in with the Be Good Foundation. And yeah, with the help of I think you guys just did a podcast recently with Jamie.
Yeah.
Jamie came out and rode that with me. Jay Peterberry actually showed up. I had no idea he was coming, and he just popped up out of nowhere on that ride. But yeah, I mean, paralyzed on an upright acoustic bike, I rode for 2 days on a bike packing trip. So I set up my own tent. I took down my own tent. I strapped it to the bike. I did it all on my own.
Oh man, no
Yeah,
kidding.
pretty
Yeah, I was
incredible.
because I
wow.
was going to ask about that. Well, a
Mhm.
couple of things. I mean, I'm curious. Do is crashing part of the deal
Yes.
with your situation? Because I mean, I would
Yeah,
imagine, you
yeah,
That's
it
why I
know,
is.
say, yeah, you ride those with a team, but what happens if you're out doing your 60 miler by your 60 miler by yourself?
Well, yeah, if I get stopped, which has happened, you have bike problems, you get a flat tire, a chain comes off,
yeah,
or whatnot, or I mean, there was one time I come across a creek that had raging water in it, and I had to slam on the brakes and fell over. I've got to figure out how I can get restarted. You just got to be creative, you know.
mm-hmm, right,
Uh, One time I found a fence post, and I got over to that fence post, got all
right.
scratched up from barbed wire and everything else, but I was able to lean against it to get my feet placed to take off. Well, another time
Flesh wound.
I was around a bunch of houses and I didn't know what to do, so I just kind of, I use the bike as a crutch when I walk. I kind of lean on it and I kind of
Mm-hmm.
shuffle my way along. I just, I pushed the bike up to that person's house. I don't no idea whose house it was, and I just leaned against their garage door
Huh,
and got started, rode back out their driveway, and kept on going.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, falling down is a part of my life every day. But it don't matter if I'm riding a bike or not. If I'm walking, I'll fall down. I mean, that just happens because I can't feel my feet. I don't know where they are, and I've gotten so used to the repetition part of it that, yeah, if I stub a toe or a pebble is in the way, it'll knock me over for sure.
yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you that because I think that the people that are listening may not realize the resolve that it takes to keep going, right? I mean, a lot of people, if you crash a couple of times, it's just like, oh, maybe this is not for me, or they could get discouraged or whatever. But the resolve that you have that just, you have to accept, like, hey, this is just part of the deal. And hey, I ride with Dave. Dave crashes all the time.
All
It's
the time.
definitely part of his deal.
You know,
But
Jeremy, you should ride with Mike too, because when you crash, he sends you new helmets. It's really good. It's a racket. It's just a racket.
uh-huh. It's
uh,
usually after I'm done laughing, though. I'm really bad at that. Yeah.
the first time I got on an acoustic bike, I it was a gravel bike. So it had drop bars, and it was a I can't remember the brand of it. I borrowed it from a friend that was custom made for him, and it was some $8,000 bike, and I was blown away that a bike could cost that much. And
Yeah.
he was just gave it to me to let me use it. Well, I took that thing out onto a gravel road because it was a gravel bike. I thought I had to ride on gravel. I had no other choice. When I took it on gravel road, I was on the ground more than I was upright, and it
Hmm.
was freaking hard to
Yeah.
get my leg over, to finally get my feet placed on that bike, to figure out how to lean against the truck to where I could keep the handlebars straight. And I would take off and I would literally fall over every time. And after about 10 minutes of that, I was like, you know what? Maybe I might have found something that I can't do, or maybe I need to stay on that indoor exercise bike a little longer,
Hmm.
Uh,
What,
but but but
I,
how'd you break through? How'd you break
I
that
just
cycle?
yeah.
yeah, it's just, well, maybe I just try one more time.
Hmm.
Maybe I just try one more time, and then and then I rode the bike about 15 feet, and I had to make a right hand turn because it was just kind of like a little horseshoe drive, kind of a camp spot off of a dirt road,
Hmm.
and I fell over. And I was like, well, god damn, if I could ride to this point, let me try again, and maybe I can get a little further. I can get a little
Hmm.
further, and I can get a little further, and
And you can do 66 miles at Rebecca's Private Idaho one
yeah, how
day.
about that? I never in a million years.
Right.
I tried the Tusher and the Crusher. I don't even know why I thought I could do that one. That was just out of pure convenience because it was only 30 minutes from where I lived. And
Uh-huh.
I think I made 3 miles on that one. I turned around. Said, this is crazy.
Yeah.
How long, how long from lunch with your wife saying I want to be
Oh, good Lord.
to gravel to like I'm going to do Rebecca's Private Idaho. I know you got the indoor
Three
trainer and you
months.
met Yuri. 3 months.
3 months.
3 months.
Three
Wow.
months.
Oh shit.
So I got that exercise bike in November of 2022. In I think it was February of 2023 is when Yuri connected me with Rebecca's Private Idaho. And then July 8th, I think it was was the Tusher in the Crusher, or Crusher in the
Yep.
Tusher, there in Beaver, Utah.
Yeah.
Crazy, 11,000 feet elevation gain in like 2 miles. Uh, I, I yeah, and I mean, so we're talking 6 months, well, 9 months, 10 months from the time that I was sitting there eating lunch with my wife to where I was sitting on the starting line for Rebecca's Private Idaho.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I've been thinking about doing it for 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it and so November 22, and it's what now, May of 24. So I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not even 2 years into this yet, and I've got SBT gravel on in my sights for this year. I've got
Great.
Rebecca's Private Idaho again this year. I'm signed up to go up to California to the Bovine Classic this fall.
Oh, nice.
Yep, plan on doing that one.
So
Yeah.
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 And
So,
I've got a gravel bike now. I haven't given up on the acoustic lifestyle because I through my social media I've had a lot of emails or messages through people who ask me a lot of questions, a lot of other disabled people with spinal cord injuries that have the same drive that I did, that want to know what they can do to get to that point. So I truly believe that I've made some good friends, and I'm helping some people learn how to ride a bike just through my social media and riding that acoustic bike. But I'm also learning the advantage of that e-assist.
oh yeah.
For me, it actually gives me back full use of my legs, not just partial use of my legs. And I'm kind of hoping that through some of the ADA compliance rules that we can get these e-assist bikes included in a lot more events. So
Yeah.
I've hooked
here,
up with
here. Yeah.
Specialized now, and I've gotten a Creo actually through High Fives and challenged athletes, and I haven't had a whole lot of opportunity to ride it yet because I'm scared to death to ride a bicycle here in the city.
Oh,
Um, at least that bicycle. And I will get out on it, but I'm hoping I can actually bring this e-assist gravel to all three of those events this year, SBT, RPI as
yeah,
well.
I'm pretty much seeing e-bikes at every event
Yeah,
nowadays.
and
You know,
I don't. I think what you've done is incredibly noble, and you've probably inspired a lot of people because it is that. But if you inspire more people because of an e-bike, I'm all about the e-bike. So if you've touched that many people, just think how many you're gonna just touch as many too with the e-bike. It's just it's where it's
it may
at.
make it in a weird
Yeah,
way, like it may make it seem more realistic for some people, right?
right,
Because let's face it, I mean, to ride 66 miles, that's not something that many people even want to do,
right,
on a regular
right,
acoustic bike.
right.
So, the e-bike may, but, and I'm thinking as a bike junkie, uh, the e-bike would pose some extra challenges though, right? Just get like I've watched I love when you chronicle like how you get around and how you do things. Like there's a thing where you're flipping your rack down, and getting it ready to load the bike, and I think
Oh, yeah,
that's really helpful for people to see that, like, look, you're not relying on somebody doing this stuff for you. You figured out a way to do it. And but that said, then there's scenario of actually loading the bike onto the rack. Acoustic bike far easier to load than an e-bike onto a rack.
Yeah.
Also, I could imagine just at getting on the bike, getting yourself situated and getting on the acoustic bike seems like it might be a little bit of an easier proposition than the heavier e-bike. The only issue is just the weight of the situation, right? Can you speak to that a little bit, or have you found ways around that, or
yeah.
See,
Actually, I
this
have.
is Jeremy. This is
Yeah,
reverse psychology. Mike has just told you you can't do it, so now you're going to go do it.
and I'm going to post a video
yes,
on how it's done.
You're
yeah,
welcome.
Yeah.
yeah,
So, you know, I honestly haven't seen a whole lot of difference, Mike, in loading or unloading this e-bike versus my acoustic. My acoustic bike that I got is it made by a company called Jibe. They're out of Salt Lake City area, and it is super lightweight. I
yeah,
mean, it is light. And then this e-bike, yeah, it's a little heavier, but again, if you go to my social media, you'll see a picture of me holding the e-bike up above my head
right,
when I went to pick it up. So
yeah.
to be honest with you, if anything, I feel like the weight makes it easier for me to ride
Oh,
because I can't feel my legs through my upper body. I can feel I feel like I got something under me now.
oh, yeah.
You know, I've got I've got some weight under me. You know, I've got some girth for lack of better words.
Yeah.
And the yeah, I no, yeah, it hasn't been any harder. If anything, I feel like that part's been easier.
Yeah.
Where I feel like I'm going to run into issues with the e-bike is when the e-bike's not working like it's supposed to be working.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah, because you only have
They
so much battery, right?
exactly,
Yep.
and they say yeah, it's going to pedal the same as any bike when it doesn't have power, but that bike's like 30 pounds or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be super hard for me to try and pedal that thing up
Mm-hmm.
any type of grade if it don't have any power. And
Right.
that's something that I feel like I've got to work on a little bit is trying to get used to that. I
Mm-hmm.
bought a trike for the first time here recently that I use to commute. So as a cripple guy, I, I again, I posted a video on this too, but I can load my wheelchair on the back of this trike and I can get on it. And I pedaled my way around Las Vegas with a wheelchair strapped to the back of a bicycle. I can just imagine what some of the people think when they see
All
me
right.
on a bike path
Yeah.
like that. But
That's
that one
pretty cool though.
I've lost power on it, and that one's super, that's like 60 pounds. And then it's got a 25-pound wheelchair strapped to the back of it as well. And I've lost power on that one. And I've actually been able to pedal my way uh,
Yeah.
through, to get home on that one. A lot of that has to do though, I don't have to use any core strength or balance or anything. I'm just
Oh,
sitting there on that one.
right.
All I gotta do is pedal it and steer it.
Yeah. And of course the challenge with the gravel events is the elevation gain, right? So
Yes.
they're just big gnarly courses, that require a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they have a range extender for that Clio. So
Yeah, yeah,
um
yeah, and I've actually got one. I've
okay.
got, yep, I got the range extender for it. I just worry. I tend to over worry about things that might never happen.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the injury, over preparation for things like that
Right.
bike packing trip. I did a 2-day bike packing trip, and this may be something everybody deals through, but when I first loaded the bike, I probably had enough stuff on there to make it a whole month out there on my own.
Right.
You know,
Uh,
I didn't realize it was just an overnighter, and a lot of that for me, anyways, is because of my disability. I want to make sure that I'm going to be able to to handle the situation on my own,
hmm.
because that's why I do this. I do this for my own mental health.
Yeah.
And if I can inspire somebody else to do it down the road, it's an added bonus to me. If
Hmm.
I can find somebody else who's curious, may not even be injured, but who's curious about how I do things, and wants to see and wants to learn so that maybe they can help somebody, it's an added bonus. But ultimately, I do this because it's something that makes me feel good. It's something that I feel like is allowing me to be able to continue to to physically grow and become stronger, so that I
Yeah.
can, that's like I said earlier, so I can keep that dream alive after 16 years of still maybe I'll be able to do this without anybody's help.
Yeah.
And riding the acoustic bike makes me feel so good. It makes me feel so alive. And now if I can just figure out how to do this, how I can start out, or maybe not figure out how to do this, but build the strength to be able to start out on my own, to
Hmm.
where I can literally do this without any support riders, riding next to me. I mean, I know everybody's going to be there to support, but to where I can go at this on my own is that big next audacious goal that
Mm.
that I have my sights set on.
Yeah.
Um, I Before I could not only start out on my own, but I couldn't even stop on my own. Every time I'd come to a stop, I'd fall over. I told you I clipped in on the right side, so I had to learn when I come to a stop to have most of my weight towards the left side. When with that dropper post, it's just kind of a combination of a lot of things going on, slowing down. The left foot would come off of the pedal, the dropper post would come down, and I'd have it low enough to where when I would stop that bike, my left foot would land on the ground flat at the exact same time that bike came to a dead stop
Oh,
or an
wow.
abrupt stop. And I I learned I, I learned how to make that easy and how to make that safe for me to be able to do without any fear whatsoever of falling over, as long as I stay to the left side.
Yeah.
I get going to
Man.
the right side, I'm done.
All right. I mean, the quads have got to be, because you're asking your leg to do something that requires all all of the all of the ingredients in the leg,
Mhm.
and yet, you don't have any activation on a lot of those muscles and tendons and whatnot. Do you ever when you're developing this technique,
Mhm.
I just trying to visualize it. I would be afraid of like maybe the leg might break or something. You know what I mean? Because you're not really
Right.
the ankle and the cat, it's got to be just right before you put your weight on it, or it could buckle or something. I don't know. It just seems
Yeah.
like,
That's a question I get asked quite a bit because it is just a ligament, like
hmm,
holding my joints together. I've got, the muscles have deteriorated. I mean, it's not like they've disappeared, but they've deteriorated, and the muscles don't hold things together anymore. It's pure ligaments that are holding things together for me. And people say, yeah, well, God, Jerry, what what if you place your foot down and the bike doesn't stop? You twist your ankle. Yeah, I'm going to snap it. You're right, but
yeah,
I'm not going to feel it. I'm not going to let that stop me from trying.
right,
Seriously, that's just one thing that I don't think about. I mean, if it happens, it happens, I guess. I'll deal with it then.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, no,
It's
yeah,
back to that resolve that we were talking about. You just have
yeah.
this
I mean,
resolve.
if I was to
You're
be
not going to be stopped.
scared of everything that could happen, I might as well just stayed in bed for that third day when I got home from the hospital.
Yeah.
You got
Well,
to take chances. You've got to take risks. You've got to you've got to set audacious goals. You've got to set big goals, but you've also got to set achievable points within that time frame. Otherwise, you you won't lose the want to reach that goal, but you'll lose the drive. You'll lose the 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 want. Uh,
hmm,
because you start feeling like you can't get there. You know, like
right.
like I said, at the beginning for me, it was to be able to ride an upright bike like everybody else did. Well, to start with, I got a bike that just sat in the house. I didn't have to
Yeah.
worry about it falling over if my feet fell off. Hell, when I got it, I didn't even know if I could sit on the seat and put and pedal the thing. Just through trial and error and through repetition, I learned how to do it. And uh, I borrowed that bike from a friend. I went out and I fell down and I fell down time and time and time again. I never got sad. I got angry because it wasn't working the way that I thought that it was going to work. But,
Hmm.
it was
I,
one
I was
small step
actually
in the big picture.
I was going to
Yeah.
bring that example up. I'm a big fan of that. Like set the smaller goals so that you know that you achieve them, right? And like you said, with that gravel bike, you said you went 15 feet and you said, okay, that's a victory, right? So now do it again,
Yeah.
right? I think that's a huge lesson for people, to learn.
Yeah.
And
I don't want to bring up Yuri again, but he was he doesn't really know this. I've never told him this, but that just and you bringing up that small goal. My big goal then was to make Yuri proud of what he did for me.
Oh man.
For him to be able to realize through an iFit training program that he did, he had no earthly idea that he was going to be able to help somebody mentally and physically recover from a 14-year struggle with a spinal cord injury. And if I could ride that bike like Yuri rode his bike, uh, and I could show him that I was able to do that, that was my big audacious goal. And they just like you said, that first 15 feet, it all led up to that Rebecca's Private Idaho for me.
Yeah.
It all led up to, here, you and I think I did tell him, I was like, you did this for me. And he's like, no, Jeremy, you did it. It's all you. I'm like, no, but I wouldn't have done it without you either.
Yeah.
So with, I guess with that said, you never know who you're going to touch,
Hmm.
in life every day when you wake up in the morning and you leave your house, you have no idea whose life you may affect for the rest of their lives or whose life you
Yeah.
may change. So,
Well,
so be kind and be helpful.
absolutely. And you said you didn't want
yeah,
to bring Yuri up again, but I'm so glad you did because we love Yuri on this podcast and just in general. He's just one of the special. I mean, the industry's loaded with really great people, but Yuri is just one of those guys that's just always gonna stop. He's always got time for everybody. He's always gonna give 100% of himself. And yeah, we love and respect the guy. And it's just cool to hear that. I had no idea,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
honestly, I
yeah,
had no idea that
yeah,
he was part of your
yeah,
story.
yeah,
And
yeah.
here it is, he's a big part of the story, so um yeah, Yuri's an amazing guy. And
Yeah, can you imagine
but
him and
I
his
like.
wife? This is the dynamic duo. They're both
Oh,
that way,
yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no
Yeah.
doubt.
So
But Yuri's right, I mean, he did the program and he put it together, but still the resolve, I keep going back to that. And when you're telling the story about bike packing, I was uh the word independence came to mind, like I feel like that's part of it too. Just my interpretation of your taking these challenges on is just, hitting that independence, feeling that sense of independence. Seems like that's part of the story.
Yeah.
But
It really is. Yep.
yeah, Jeremy, it's
and I like what Mike is saying there. It's the resolve. I think Mike and I have had this chat a lot, and there's a reason why, we've invited some of our guests on, Michael Seeley and Matt Fitzgerald, because it's all about the mental toughness. That it's something that honestly I feel like I've lost a little bit, and to hear a story like you, the resolve, and I'm just like, shut the fuck up, Dave. Listen to what these guys, like,
yeah,
that negative talk, right? And now I'm listening
yeah.
to the resolve and that you ticked over that many times and you just said, no, I'm getting back up. Yeah, just,
Yeah.
my God, I can't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to. That bike packing trip, I don't want to bring it back up again. That was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life,
Yeah.
mentally and physically. That was way harder than I ever in a million years could have imagined it would be. And I'll be right honest with you guys. I have struggled since then, and that happened clear back in March, the beginning of March. I've been fighting demons ever since I finished that ride because it was so difficult for me to do. Rebecca actually made a comment to me once on social media saying, "You know what, Jeremy, that's normal to feel that after something like that,
Yeah.
And I feel like I get, I'm coming out of it, but then I fall right back into struggles.
I don't want to drag you down, but why? It was a victory. You got it done. What,
I don't know why.
why?
I
Yeah.
I I I I wish I did. I wish I had the answer to that. I I raised enough money to send two more para athletes to Rebecca's Private Idaho on
Oh,
an
man.
all inclusive paid trip. I mean, we're talking stipends, room, travel, main
Awesome.
event, the whole
Wow.
ball of wax. And
Yeah.
that was my goal. I blew my goals out of the water on that deal. And
Yeah.
maybe that's why. Maybe I feel like I can't top it. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe there's a
Yeah.
little letdown. I know, like with
Yeah,
Tara.
all the build up to now what?
Yeah, with Tara, uh she was an athlete for Giant when, I was, it was a long time ago, but I was still a Giant, and when her accident took place, and we put on these races for her. And we were just to raise money. Initially, it was just to raise money for her. We literally just gave her a big wad of cash, and then later it turned into a charity thing. But there was definitely, like, we'd have these incredible moments, um, these highs, these during the race or at the end of the race. Usually it was during the award ceremony, and we would have some guest speakers, and it was just like this. And afterwards, it was like, I don't know, it's like, how could I possibly tie, how could I have
Mhm.
an experience of my life that's going to be more meaningful than what that just happened? And, and so, yeah, there was a little bit of a setback almost afterwards, and then we'd start planning the next year's event. And then in the self-talk to Dave, Dave's, we all have this voice in our head. And, I just remember, like, there's no way we can top last year. This is what are we even doing? Let's just, let's just drop the mic and be done with it,
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. I think that that's probably you did something really spectacular and really unexpected, for and then yeah, so how do you top it? But I don't think you have to top it, you know.
Right.
That's an
Yeah.
experience,
Right.
mission accomplished. Let's
Right.
go on to the next experience, and just
Right.
keep pushing.
Right. Well,
Um,
yeah, like I said,
But what is
earlier,
on the horizon, Jeremy? What is on the horizon?
well, like, I mean, I guess I said it earlier, right now, my next big audacious goal for me personally is to be able to start out on that bike unassisted.
Okay.
And
yeah,
that's where I think that e-assist is going to come into play with
yeah,
this new Creo comp that I got. It'll actually kick in that motor with about a half of a pedal stroke. So if I can build up the confidence to push that pedal from the top to the bottom on one side, I feel like I'll get enough momentum, and I've got enough experience now to where I can get that left foot up onto that pedal. And if I can't, I'm connected on the right side, and I got enough strength to where I can pull that pedal up because I've got
Yeah.
that extra
yeah,
crutch of that motor, to help me pull that pedal back up on the right side so I can get the left pedal lower to get my foot on it if I need to. That's my next big thing. For me
You,
personally. Yeah. After that, I guess it's just the bike races I got coming up.
yeah.
Uh,
You mentioned
and you brought
SPT.
up a good point. I I'm slow. I'm still recovering from this mental blocker or this block I've had since that bike packing trip. And I can't remember his name. He's ride this out on Instagram, but he actually made a comment about me being pedal power as a bike commuter in the city. And I was like, God dang it, you know what? I never thought about it that way. But you're right.
hmm
Paralyzed with a wheelchair strapped to the back of my bike, pedal commuting to Costco, to Home
right,
Depot, to the grocery
right.
store. That's actually pretty incredible when you think about it.
It is.
It's
Yes.
beyond incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
Yeah.
going to inspire somebody else to give it a try. I'm gonna teach somebody else how they can put their wheelchair on the back of a trike. And you never know. Maybe somebody's who's been wanting to build a trike is going to say, "Hey, you know what, Jeremy? We need you to help us show other people how to do what you're doing, so
Yeah.
that we can get more people on bikes because that is the ultimate goal."
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. All right. Well, listen, you've been very generous with your time, and we should probably wrap it up here. Dave, do you have anything else you want to
Well, two
finish
things.
on?
The one, because I do have to go, but the e-bike I think speaks right to what we were talking about. Someone may not have the drive, like you said, to go out and try to do 60 miles, right? If they tried, they might hate it, and boom. That's one of the things about the beauty of the e-bike is if that first ride of theirs is 10 miles and it's easy, then they're coming back. If that first ride is hard, they may not, right?
Right.
So I think there's a
Right.
lot of power with the e-bike. But
Mhm.
having said that, you've mentioned a couple, or you've mentioned Specialized. I think you mentioned were you saying that your shoes are they 5'10"
Yeah.
or
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So anyone else you want to give a shout out to? Enough of Yuri. All right, we just had enough of him. So,
Yeah.
but if he wants to send me
Hey, I'm going to
birthday
call
cake
Yuri right
goo,
after we get done here and tell him
yeah,
about this experience we just had with
yeah.
Jeremy. Yeah.
All right, and Yuri, if you're listening, send birthday cake goo. But anyways, but anyone else you want to thank or give a shout
No.
out to? This sounds like you
Um,
do. I mean, Rebecca, obviously, and
yeah. Rebecca Rush and Era Harden, her COO down there for the Be Good Foundation, have been incredible through this whole
Yeah.
process and super supportive. Um, you know them them 5'10" shoes were a lifesaver for me. I don't think I could do it without them. Magped, I've come across the Magped pedals and I've invested in them, and what a game changer, because now I can lock in both feet straight on my pedals without any fear of them coming off if my legs get spinning too fast. But
Oh,
yet I
wow.
can still pull them off if I need to because I'm not
Okay.
clipped in. I can't rotate my heels to unclip. So the Magpeds have been super big for me, and obviously the High Fives Foundation and the Challenged Athletes Fund. I would not have this Specialized Creo comp bike uh, without their support, for
Yeah.
sure. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. They, I mean, those were grants that they provided to me to be able to get that bike.
Yeah.
we had the Challenge Athlete Foundation on
Yeah, we did.
with One Arm Willie. So yeah, they're great. What an
Yeah,
organization.
I love that podcast. That
Oh
guy,
man.
yeah, that guy's super inspiring.
He's
He's
something else,
so
isn't he?
much fun to listen to.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's a
Yeah,
character.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I want to ask you, I'm just looking at this hat on the podcast there. Is that is that hat from Maui by chance?
No, that's
Oh, okay.
the Crusher and the Tusher from
Oh,
last
it
year.
is. Okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, that's their logo. Yep.
Yeah. I have a retailer over there, has a similar logo with a cog and a K in it, and
Gotcha.
it's
Yeah,
Crank Cycles. Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I thought maybe there
I
might be a connection there.
I found another reason to do this Rebecca's thing. I got to get that T-shirt. Look at that. That's an awesome
I tell you,
T-shirt.
Yeah,
they do good stuff there.
they
Good.
do. Yeah.
You
And
guys
way
need
to
to try
kiss
and get
ass
there.
on it.
I'm telling you what, that is an experience that everybody needs. Whether you ride a bike or not, you need to go to Rebecca's Private Idaho to experience it.
Yeah. I've heard
Um,
nothing. I've heard a lot of the
it
similar things.
it is unbelievable how
Yeah.
supportive and how kind and how fun that experience is.
Yeah. Well, it starts with Rebecca, she's
Yep.
an incredible person
Yep.
for sure.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right. Well, Jeremy, thanks again so much. If
Yeah.
anybody
Thanks,
out
guys.
there is inspired by the podcast, want to follow along with Jeremy, what's the best way to do it? You mentioned you have a blog. You're also on Instagram.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's it. Those are only two I'm on. I got Instagram, Paragravel Cyclist, and then the blog is kind of the same thing, www.paragravelcyclist.com.
great.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, Jeremy. Appreciate you.
Yeah, you
And
bet. Thanks, guys.
Jeremy, you rock.
Enjoyed
You
talking to
rock,
you.
man. Thank you.
Thanks,
yeah.
guys.
All right. Thanks everybody out there for listening. That's going to do it for this week's episode. We'll catch you next time.